Hey there, welcome back to On Therapy with Paul and Cy. I am Simon Sanborn.
And I am Paul Jacobson.
Cool, Paul. We are going to jump into some things about middle age today. That'll be an interesting topic. But you had some words of wisdom before we got started.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to share with our listeners that Simon and I, being therapists, talking about uh, therapy in general and trying to get people to consider going to therapy, we do hit on some topics at times that might be a little triggering to people. And I just want to be mindful of that, just realizing that some of the topics that we discuss could be kind of sensitive for people and can hit home.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. We can make comments, statements that even if we're talking about something a little mundane, not necessarily even suicide, we can still tap into things that are a little shaky for people, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
So we are talking about middle age today. And last night when I was talking to you about this idea, I said, boy, I don't thanks a lot. I guess we're going to be talking about you, Paul, because I don't see myself as middle-aged. And I think that's because
Yeah.
I mean, when people talk about how they feel on the inside, and I feel like, at least from my point of view, middle age has been a pretty awesome thing. I think I've come into a lot of self-understanding over the past 5, 10 years that has been beneficial. But it took a while to get here and a lot of understanding to get to this spot. But like I joked around with you, I still feel like gosh, I want to say like in my early 20s of like,
That's awesome, Simon.
that's how I think about myself, kind of. But then I also feel like I have the wisdom of all the years past that, that I'm kind of glomming the two together. And it's kind of nice in a
Ah,
sense.
that is.
But I have a lot of fulfillment in my life. And so I think that's a huge part of it. And that's probably where we can kind of dive into, if we're talking to the person out there that's, considering therapy, thinking about coming in and meeting with someone, having the opportunity to, yeah, you can come into therapy and be like, God, I'm 50, I'm 55, and I don't feel great. I don't know what my path is. Am I going to continue working at the job I've been working at this long and just keep doing it? And it's a grind now. The kids are out of the house maybe, or they're getting ready to leave. Like what am I supposed to
Right.
do? All these identifiers of who I am are now kind of like, fading away a little bit. And so it's a really interesting space to be in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Talking about middle age, it's funny because, in one breath, my wife might say that I'm still a 14-year-old, especially when it comes down to my humor at times.
Sure.
But I also know just like my body and my energy level and just I feel like I'm not 14 or 25.
Hmm.
I can tell I'm not as young as I used to be. And then saying that, I have friends who are in their 70s and 80s and they would joke at us to say that we're middle aged, because
Yeah.
we're young pups when
Yeah.
it comes down to it, right? We
Hmm.
still have a lot of experiences to live. So I'm excited for that too.
Yeah. And back to that like lower kind of like, I think as the thing I've bumped into the most, I think you spoke to this a little bit ago of like my motivation is not like it used to be. I kind of struggle at times about feeling like, God, I feel like I'm lazy, not really positive self-talk, but just kind of like what's keeping me from getting in and doing the things that
Mhm.
at the minimum I can do for myself. And those things are hard to get the motivation for. And I had a friend who does testosterone replacement
Mm,
therapy,
yeah,
and they've seen big changes because it kind of is supplementing what your body is not making anymore.
right.
And it's different than taking it when you're young because your body's already making it, and then you're adding to it, and that can be detrimental because it starts stop making it because you're giving it already, and that could be bad. But for us, it's not making like it used to, and
Right.
so that replacement can be really
Mhm.
helpful. I kind of equate it to hormone replacement for like women in a sense, like the
Mhm.
same kind of idea of like
Sure.
allowing our bodies to balance out when it's missing certain things.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I've been thinking about it, and this is the funniest part. I probably would have done it already if there wasn't long needles involved. And
Yeah.
then, like, again, talk
No
about the
kidding.
silly things like, oh,
Uh-huh.
this thing will help you. It'll give you more energy, motivate you more. You just feel better, you sleep better, all these wonderful attributes to it. And I don't want to get a shot in my ass.
Hmm.
And that's
Right.
the deciding factor.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
like I have a friend who does it, but his wife does it for him, and she's a nurse. So I'm like, well, that's nice.
Oh,
Maybe I can come over to your house every couple of weeks, and you can give it to me like you do
yeah,
your
right.
husband. But I think
Huh?
there's things out there to kind of help us out. But have you heard about testosterone therapy
Oh,
replacement?
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have some friends that have done it that are in our age group, and it really has been a very positive experience for them.
Okay,
Um,
that's cool.
feel more energy. They, just with their strength, they
Mm.
say that they feel a lot stronger and that
Mm.
they can lift more. Um,
Oh,
they have oftentimes lost some weight too,
okay.
uh, or just the um, like they just feel like they have more muscle than
Okay.
what they had before, especially if they're lifting and working out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes you think of uh, maybe the privilege we have of being able to do testosterone replacement therapy now, but not
Mhm.
everybody has that. I think a good topic to talk about would be maybe when we find ourselves in those doldrums kind of middle age. We hear about that a lot of like who am I now? How do I make meaning in my life? There's so many things that are tied into that. So I think about somebody thinking about coming into therapy and how could we help them in a sense. It sounds odd to say like, how do we help people motivate themselves? But I think that when you come into therapy, say for lack of energy, lack of wanting to do things, that kind of stuff, and you're a middle-aged guy, that we can help maybe suss out what is holding you back, maybe at times.
Mhm.
And some of those things are things we've built into our lives, like comfort. You work hard all day long. It's nice to get home and be on the couch and just chill out. So, I
Mhm.
mean, we all do that. But then, finding even like gaps in your day. I talk to my clients about breath work, and they're just like, I just don't know when I'm going to pull it off. And I'm like,
Mhm.
fair, but like it's 30 seconds. It regulates your nervous system. So what's the sacrifice going to be? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to go to the bathroom and do 3 breaths? You know what I mean? It's just like finding that, you can find gaps to make it happen.
There you
And I'm
go.
saying, yeah, and I'm saying this all with the things that I don't do. Like I don't work out every day like I want to. I don't do the things that I know I should be doing, which I think a lot of people can relate to. Of like, I know I should be doing this thing. Why can't I do this thing? And I do think therapy can suss out some of those things, whether it's for me, comfort and food and sugar, right? What am I, am I leaning into that because it's addictive? Probably part of it.
Mhm.
Another part is what am I finding comfort from that mouth pleasure that I'm getting from that I know is, I'm eating it, or say I'm drinking bourbon. I have these thoughts of like, I'm just putting poison into my body. And I don't like that. I don't like that I'm consciously doing something that I know is somewhat detrimental. And
Mhm.
so, finding out why, and that's the kind of stuff I do talk to my therapist about, saying like I'm still having these blocks in this area, and I really beat myself up when I can't get out of my therapy chair and go for a walk or go work out. What is that about? So maybe you can speak a little bit to that of like what the idea of therapy could help somebody who's thinking about coming to therapy and maybe has is having, I hate the term midlife crisis, but it is a
Mhm.
midlife, coming to a like, well, now what the hell do I do?
Yeah, right. And Simon, I think that's the beautiful thing about therapy, and especially for people who've never done it
Mm,
before, is when we're experiencing these challenges of, I just maybe don't have the desire to get as much shit done around the house, or go to the gym, or go for a walk, or watch what I eat, or whatever it might be. When we're holding on to that ourselves and we're maybe beating ourselves up or just kind of holding that weight, to be able to, have a good relationship with your therapist and be able to express it and talk about how, damn, I just freaking can't do it.
Mm.
I want to go to the gym. I want to go for walks. I know these things are good for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
what the hell's
I
wrong with me?
Yeah, but it's when you can actually say it out loud to a person that deeply cares for you, it really helps us just get on the other side of it. And it's like, wow,
Mm.
you know, I just feel better telling the story. And
Hmm.
just even that can produce some positive change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking I was talking to my therapist and talking about like weight, and she was asking me about like what's the part of my body that I don't like, and I said my stomach, and I think I even said in therapy like I hate it, I hate my stomach.
Mm.
Um, and so she kind of keyed in on that, I think a little bit, and she said, I wonder if you could, it's not fun to hate a part of ourselves, even if it's a physical part of ourselves. Maybe you can start giving that part of yourself, some love and attention, so to speak, and try to stop the hate, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, and so she offered this idea of when I find the time to do it, to like rub my stomach and like really intentionally think about like, sorry, I'm sorry I've hated you for so long.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
understand why this might have happened, and kind of like the same kind of way I would talk through a stressful moment in my own head with myself,
Yeah.
to stay calm and regulated in the moment. And so at first I thought, God, that's really silly. Like I thought it was so ridiculous,
You,
so
yeah.
ridiculous. And I'm an experiential therapist, and I thought this is fucking nuts. But again, another signal to me of like, okay, why is that hard? Like,
Right. Why is that
why is
hard?
it, so you rub your stomach and say, I love you. Like, what's so different? I mean, it sounds corny, but who gives a shit? And
Mhm.
so I kind of, again, turned it into something that worked for me. And so now when I do walk, which I try to do every other day at the very least, if not every day, is now that the weather's nice, is when I'm walking, taking my shirt off. And I don't like taking my shirt off. And so I've been now taking my shirt off and walking and just kind of like being okay, stressful, yeah, uncomfortable. Sure, there's people walking back and forth. I walk by Mount Mercy University, so there's athletes everywhere walking, and I'm just like, oh Jesus. And so
Yeah.
but that was my way of like, and so then I think about it. I'm like, okay, I'm letting myself out there. It's okay,
Wow.
and give myself some credit and some love towards that part of my body so that I can kind of slowly integrate that back into my way of thinking about it. And what's crazy is, this is probably a couple weeks ago, but I was walking by the parking lot to the girls' softball field, and this guy gets out of his truck and closes the door and stands there and looks at me as I walk by. And I just kind of give him a wave. And he goes, look at you. Look at you, you sexy bastard. You're out here and you're just living life. Look at you. Good for you. And I don't know this guy from anybody.
Yeah.
And I didn't take it as, I didn't, he was, I think, being positive, like he's being thoughtful. And I thought, what a good validation for what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to accomplish it for me. But
Yeah.
then to know that that's happening for me inside, and then I get some external validation in some way, it's really
Right.
nice when those moments happen. And so
Yep.
I'm just thinking of like, somebody who's thinking about coming to therapy and going like, oh my God, this guy is going to tell me to rub my stomach, and that's what his therapy's like. Um, that's after a 4 year investment with this therapist,
Yeah.
3 years, 3 year investment with this therapist who knows me really well, knows how I think, how I process. Again, one of the benefits of having a therapist is they get to know you, get to know your language, how you think, things like that. So it was really it's nice to have that backup. And I know I know, being a therapist, being a client to a therapist,
Yeah.
I love the exploration. And so I like it when she offers silly things like that to me because she knows me and she knows that I'm goofy and silly at times and that I
Right.
don't take that shit too seriously and that she can ask me something that, under the guise of it being kind of silly in a way. She didn't present it that way. That's how I took it. Again, a little defensiveness probably there. But it was just nice to just give somebody to give me some kind of idea of what to do. Like she was like, hey, this is a suggestion. Maybe you try this thing because it's so specific. And so I
Yeah.
was like, okay, but knowing her for as long as I have, I felt so comfortable with it. And I
Mhm.
think that that's one of the benefits of a therapist is just being able to go in and check in with that person so that we can bounce ideas off of, or
Yeah.
if I say something or I have a phrase that I say to her and she picks out a couple of things that goes, wow, that sounds different than what you said before, either, positive or negative, I guess. But she can pull those things out and she can then apply it to me, knowing how I think through her lens. And it just gives me opportunity. And so, there's nothing to be fixed here. There's just more understanding to happen so I can wrap my head around my experiences to then apply them to what's happening now. So I can
Right.
see if I can make a change. That's all I'm looking for is how I can make a change and doing things differently if I feel the need to.
Yeah. And we both know, Simon, the relationship that we have with clients and the relationship they have with us. That's what it's all about.
Hmm.
And I loved that your therapist challenged you and
Hmm.
pushed you a bit to you might think it's kind of silly that you need to love on your stomach,
Hmm.
and that you need to be kinder to it. But look at you. You go and you decide, oh, hell, I'm taking my shirt off. You go for a walk. You come back and some random dude that you have no idea
Yeah.
he's
So
he
wild.
must be going, wow, I don't know if I would do that. Good job, man.
Right.
That is fantastic. You're just going. Uh and Simon, you're a big guy. I mean, you are solid like your truck, so you're pretty jacked up. So I'm sure you look fantastic.
Oh,
I'm glad that you did it.
you're a sweetheart. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, weight has been a journey for me for a long time.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's been one of those things that's been a struggle and had bad practices at one point of, well, most of it was around stress, but had huge weight fluctuations in my life that probably aren't helping me now, kind of. My body's kind of out of whack, so to speak. Some of the things I'm doing is trying to like really schedule eating time periods throughout the day so that my body gets used to like informing me what hunger feels like or things
Yeah.
like that. But again, a lot of awareness. But I think too, for people who are listening to this and they're like, okay, these guys are just talking about these goofy things that they've been doing to try to manage their midlife struggles. I wonder too of relationships, how those impact us in our middle ages. I think it's like the statistics on middle-aged men who are struggling is really high of like struggles in identity, meaning, matter, that kind of thing. I think our physical looks are part of that too. I know people that are struggling to find relationships again. Maybe they're divorced in middle age, and it's like, oh shit, I mean, it's a whole different ball game than when you and I were in high
Yeah.
school or college,
Yeah.
dating
Okay.
and things like that. It's wildly, wildly different. Um, and so I can get why it would be daunting to think about, okay, I'm middle-aged, I'm divorced, now what? And a lot of women, once they get divorced, they don't get married again. I want to say it's in like 20%-ish range, I think, of women who, after they get divorced, get remarried because they've been through the roller coaster and they're not going to do it again.
Yeah.
So, and again, there you go. That statistic right there could be daunting, So I'm 55 years old and I need to, I want to be in a relationship because connection's important for all of us. We live longer, especially men live longer if we're in relationships. So I can think that could be a huge part of the struggle.
Right. 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 Yep. And you bring up a great point too, Simon, of just how just how our diet, exercise, and our body, testosterone,
Mm.
when we're getting older in our 40s, 50s, our body isn't the same likely as what it was when we were 20, right? And we're
Hmm.
just it just doesn't perform like it used to. And it could be that we hold on to more weight. We don't have the muscle definition or something that we used to have. And then just sexually, for a lot of men, we're not the same as we were when we were young, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
so,
everything is different.
yep.
I think I don't know if I told you this or not, but I've laughed about this with a few friends, but I twisted my ankle during sex a couple weeks ago. And first of all, I
Of
didn't,
course you did, Simon.
and again, it's not like my wife and I are swinging from jungle gyms or anything, but so I woke up in the morning and I couldn't walk on my, like like I twisted my
Yeah.
ankle. And I'm like, I haven't done anything outside this bed
Mhm.
before, like I was fine when I laid down and then I'm not fine when I get up,
Oh yeah.
And so
I
it's
know.
like, and there's normal aches and pains, and then there's situations like that where I'm like, am I going to have to be aware of how I'm moving my body when I'm in having sexual relations with my wife because I'm going to hurt myself? Like this is crazy. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's and I chuckle. I mean, I chuckle about that too. I think it's funny. But there's an aspect too of all those things kind of shifting. Like, the things that were easy before are now becoming even harder, which could probably even equate to obviously working out and things like that. But just living becomes tougher. I remember I get up every day and I'm a little achy, and it's not like I have bad knees or bad hips or anything like that. It's just everything's a little older and tired.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's a kind of a constant reminder I think that we get of like, oh yeah, I'm getting older. I mean, it's
Yep.
like every time you get up and you put your feet on the ground in the morning and you're like, ooh, okay, there's some little aches and pains there. It's like, oh shit, yeah, that's right. I'm getting old.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to feel a little bit older, just go play tennis for a little bit or or go play basketball. It's like, oh, I think my
Yeah.
shoes will each weigh 25 pounds. I'm just not as quick
Yeah,
as I used to.
yeah. I was telling my son the other day, I said, hey, I went and hit tennis balls with a buddy, and he is like, oh God, how was that? Because he knows I'm getting older and I haven't played for a while, and he knows I've been playing pickleball. And
Yeah.
so he was like, how was your game? And I was like, it took about an hour,
Hmm.
but eventually I got back into it. But I also made me realize that, like, if I want to continue to play tennis, I'm going to have to continue to be playing tennis like on a regular basis to be able to be even running around
Right.
hitting tennis balls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And tennis
Right.
is important to me as pickleball. But again, it's hard to do those activities because there is part of me now, which might be, beneficial to the conversation of I'm doing things now and I'm like, okay, is this going to cause me more pain? So even while I'm doing it, I'm
Mhm.
like, is this going to cause me more pain? I'm going to feel this tomorrow. And I know my body well enough of a feeling of soreness or tightness because I've done something
Yeah.
and a tired and soreness of just my body being older.
Yeah. And it's a fine line.
Mm,
Right? It's like we can go do, help a friend move a couch or we can go exercise or whatever it might be. And it's like, okay, that didn't feel right. Is that just regular soreness from doing something we're not used to? Or in or did we hurt ourselves, And
hmm
unfortunately, people sometimes will limit what they do with the fear of something bad happening.
hmm
I don't play basketball, I don't play tennis, or I don't go skiing or whatever it might be, because I don't want something really bad to happen.
mm,
And we tend to do that when we get a little older, right? It's like
yeah.
we don't want to tear an ACL or get knee replacement or hip replacement or something like that. So
Well, I even think my dad, he came into town. This is a couple years ago, maybe even longer, and he was out at our family property working on something, and he fell off a ladder or something like
oh,
that and hurt his arm and shoulder really bad.
yeah.
And my sister called me and was like, "Hey, Sai, I think we need to have a conversation with Dad of like he shouldn't be doing these things anymore." And I was like,
Right.
"You can talk about that with him if you would like to, but I don't think slowing him down is going to be a tough one. He likes doing that kind of stuff. He likes fixing things. So, but you have those moments where you're like, okay, so am I at an age where I have to be more aware of these things? Because even working out now isn't about getting bigger and stronger like it used to be. Now it's about can I maintain this and stay healthy? And I think that's part of the difficult part about finding that internal motivation is where, what do we use? I hear people like, oh, you just got to be disciplined. You just got to be, you just gotta, suck it up and do it. And then you sit back and you're like, I want to, and I just can't get over this edge. And so then we can be like, God, I can't be like David Goggins. I can't yell at my shoes for 30 minutes and call them motherfuckers all day long and then motivate myself to do it. But it works for him. You know what I mean? So I think that's great. But I don't have that same internal kind of like language of like, get your ass up and go do the thing. I don't have that. And so there are times where I'm like, I feel bad because I'm like, why don't I have this motivation? What's blocking me from this? And so I think it's all those factors put together. But again, that's the nice part about doing it with my therapist because I can talk to her about all these things. Like all these things I can sometimes bring up and talk through. And she's really good about allowing me to sort some of that stuff out so it's not so confusing. And I'm not trying to sort through so many pieces. And she can pull out specific things that might stand out to her of what could be keeping me from being motivated to do some of the things I want to do. And I like that because it doesn't, I mean, it's none of this shit's a fix all, but it's information that I get to take in and I get to utilize how I see fit. And so I think that's one of the best parts about coming into therapy. And so people who are listening that want to do that or are thinking about doing it, that's the best part is sometimes we don't understand why we can't do it,
Mhm.
or we can even have, like we talked about in our last podcast about being told over and over again as a kid to shut up and get over it and, deal with yourself, suck it up kind of thing. And when you get to these points where you can't suck it up anymore, or you've done all the sucking up you can, and you're just like, now what do I do? I no longer have the motivation and the drive to do this stuff. Um, Being able to know that that might be an area that's kind of like I always say the word block because that's what I use for myself. It's just an area that's kind of blocked a little bit, and I just got to find a way to free it up. I visualize this. I don't know if you were when you were a kid, we used to go to the creek a lot and take rocks. It was a small creek, and we used to
Yeah,
take rocks and like position them so you made like the creek flow faster and things like
yeah,
that. I
right.
think of those blocks in my mind for some of these things is can I slowly kind of readjust these stones in the stream so things flow a little bit better? And it gives me a sense of, okay, some control maybe of like, okay, I can manipulate this to make it work for me. But I think she really helps me discover that stuff. And so again, when we don't every time I meet with her, I don't talk about my childhood and how tough it was at times, or I don't talk about my mom dying every time. It's more of like what's happening for me right now in my lived experience and how things can be shifted and changed maybe, or I can think about it differently. And for people who are looking for therapy, that's the kind of idea that I think we're really trying to promote is like this is not a come in, dump ourselves in trauma for an hour and then you're out the door. It's
Right.
if trauma shows up, then it shows up, and that's an important thing to process through. If it's just a conversation about motivation and understanding ourselves better, I mean, all of those things to me only allow space for understanding. And then I can move forward from that with it. And then I might have some internal work to find out what my motivations are. Maybe it's changed now. Maybe my motivations are completely different than they were before, and I don't know that they've changed. So, I
Mhm.
mean, it's complex.
Yep.
And having somebody else sort through those thoughts and ideas, I find beautiful just for myself, and I find it beautiful that when I'm with my clients as well.
Yeah. And Simon, you just saying it out loud to your therapist and telling the story, just gives us like some time that we're actually focusing on it.
Mm,
Because so often it's like we just keep kind of brushing it aside and it's like it's all right, it's no big deal, or I don't even want to think about it. I got too much to do. But therapy actually allows you to slow your life down a bit.
mm,
So you can actually kind of tell the story and talk about it out loud. And there can be a sense of clarity with that. It's like, God, you
mm.
know what? It just dawned on me that this is going on. What do you think?
Mhm.
To be able to hear, maybe, therapists are pretty good at like holding up a mirror and they kind of tell you what they're seeing. It's like, yeah, I think that you could do this, you could do that.
Mhm.
Really helpful.
Well, and I think that for me, the idea of that of helping people generate ideas or a different way of thinking about it really, I mean, we're just offering questions and ideas, but that person's internal experience is going to come up with its own ideas and its own thoughts about that. And then being able to talk through that idea, of like you offer a thought and an idea, and somebody's like, God, that really pisses me off. That reminds me of my old football coach. He used to scream and yell at us to
Mm,
get things done,
yeah,
how fucking stupid we were because we couldn't do this and that. And so, okay, awesome. Like that's such good information. You know what I mean? Again, and especially if it's coming from a therapist from a non-judgmental lens, which I really hope a lot of therapists do, or I assume, is you being able to sit with somebody and be like, yeah, that does suck. Like, what a pain in the ass, to have to be going through that. That's so frustrating. I can only imagine, and then offering a different idea. But having, us, that's one of I think that's why I think therapy is such a beautiful art form. I really do consider therapists artists in a way because we take all the information in from becoming therapists in school, and then we get to put it out into our therapeutic space through us. And I think that offers a lot of creativity and a lot of autonomy. And I feel like it is an art form. I can start feeling myself, and some clients that I've had for a really long time, there's such a nice comfortability that we can kind of dip into subjects pretty fast, and
very
sometimes
quick.
maybe it's not a big dip into subjects. Maybe it's more of a catch-up session and kind of
Mm.
shooting the shit for lack of a better word, and maybe we
Yeah.
drop into some things that they're kind of working through. But we just offer these ideas, and the client gets to come to the realization for themselves internally. And I think that's why I think therapy is a beautiful art form because it allows the client to come to these understandings themselves. We don't tell anybody what to do. You
Hmm.
know, I had plenty of clients, should I get divorced? Whoa, that's a boundary, man. Sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'll have clients say things, can I run this by you? Right? I've had clients to do that. And I don't mind sharing my ideas maybe, but it's still not going to be directive for people.
Yeah.
But that's the nice part is we get to offer these things, and then the client gets to come up with what it means for them, or how, I often add, so how's that land with you when I say
Hmm.
that,
Yep.
just to see what the internal process is
Mhm.
for them. And I think even that part of going to therapy is figuring out how I process things. Why do I look at through a certain lens? And then the scary part is if I have to, if I want to change, that means what I'm doing now is bad. And I think that's an area that's just not very, I don't think it's very honest, because I don't think things are bad or good necessarily when it comes to our internal
Journey.
voice and things. It's more of like, do I want to do this differently? If I do this differently, will this better my relationship? If I do this differently, will this better my health? Those kind of things, doing things differently instead of doing things better or good. Because I don't think because if we frame it like that, then our lived experience doesn't have to be bad or good. Our lived experience can be, the journey we were on and what we experienced without a lot of judgment placed on it, so that in the present, we can also show up for ourselves in that non-judgmental way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's
Yep.
tricky.
It is. It's good. Simon, it made me think of how, I'm thinking of, uh, when we have good relationships with our therapist, how oftentimes session to session to session could be different.
Mm.
Like sometimes you're not working on the same thing from one session to, let's say, the fifth session or whatever it might be. It can just change, right? Because sometimes, throughout the week, you think, oh, yeah, I need to tell my therapist this. I need to ask them this.
Hmm.
I need some guidance on this one, or I'd love to know what they think, right?
Yeah.
It could be a parenting issue, could be a work issue, could be a sleep issue, it could be anything. And
Hmm.
it's it's fascinating how uh I have clients that come to me and you brought up, hey, I want to run this by you. Yep, hear that all the time. It's like I've been watching this coworker of mine, or I got this email from this customer, and
Yeah.
it just really made me think. And I wonder what Paul would have to say about this? And
Hmm.
it's so fun to be able to uh, have that experience like with me and my therapist or my clients. It's fun to go through those things together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, therapy can be scary because a lot of self-discovery comes with a lot of judgment. And so being able to make that space be a judgmental free kind of zone. And I've definitely had clients say, well, you are a human being, you can't be judgment free. And I'm like, well, that's fair. I said, but it's part of my practice. Like it's part of how we've been trained in a way to really try to see
Following.
these things from a non-judgmental lens. And I think that that's a really freeing thing because I love the relationship that you build with clients that allows, especially over time, so that you can sit down and you can be like, hey man, what's been happening? And they'll be able to be like, okay, these are the things I was thinking about, right? I have a lot of clients open their notes. They open their notes on their phones. These are some of
Yeah.
the thoughts I had. I've had clients bring in like handwritten notes that they've kind of, if they've like done meditations or some journaling, they might have some ideas they wrote down. I love that because that can be really intentional. I was thinking about this thing. Awesome. Tell me more about that. Why did that stand out to you? And again, it's back to this, like you said, this exploration of ourselves. And while that I think that can be scary at times for sure, it's also, and I probably said this too much, such a freeing thing. You feel free of like, okay, I can get this stuff out. I can have somebody hear about my experience and tell me I'm not crazy, or hear this thing and say, oh my God, I've not, we're the same age. I know exactly what you're talking about, or we're getting divorced and I'm really worried about my kids, having been a product of divorce and having my kids be a product of divorce too. Like I can really relate to that. I have that feeling of like, oof, telling your kids you're going to get divorced, this really terrible moment. Like I can really relate to that when they express something that's similar. And so it's nice to have that space and that rapport with somebody that you really can share all that stuff freely. And I think it's even more important for men because I think women are a little bit more accessible to their feelings and their emotions, and we're not in a lot of senses. And having a space where this bubble that we're in, it's confidential, it's not going to come out of this room, and anything I say inside of this is going to be a safe zone, so to speak, of talking freely about my thoughts and my emotions about what's happening for myself. And I think yeah, that's the best part. That's the best part of being able to show up with somebody like that and be like, all right, let's put on our armor and let's get ready to go to battle if that's what's happening today. Or, hey, we're going to sit back and we're going to relax and walk through some things together. I just think it's such a fun exploration. I think that's probably the thing that I want to get across to people the most in this podcast, outside of the subjects we're talking about for each week, is this consistent theme of therapy is not about a problem to be fixed. We can come in with an issue for sure.
Yes.
We can come in with issues and that we want to have different, but we get to tackle those together. And while that's scary, you have somebody walking arm in arm with you through those experiences. And that hopefully feels a little bit better. I don't want to, we're not friends with our clients, but it's almost like we would do the same thing for a friend who's really struggling. Hey, how can I help? Maybe a different way of doing it, probably, but we still get to show up and be supportive. And if you don't have anybody in your life that's supportive, maybe your parents aren't alive anymore, maybe you are middle-aged and you're divorced and you don't know what the hell to do. Like being able to walk through just those struggles, it's like I'm 55. Yes, I'm divorced, but I have a good job. I guess I'll just keep grinding along with this thing, like that's the hard part is like being able to talk about those things is so important. And I thought too, Paul, unless you wanted to add to that, but I wanted to ask you a question. Like, we have both had the same experience with changing careers late in life. Do you
Yep.
want to walk through kind of what that experience is like for you? And I'll be happy to share mine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, yeah, this is great. So Simon, I was an educator for 30 years. My dad, my stepmom were educators. Nearly all my cousins and aunts and uncles on my dad's side were educators. I felt like from high school that that's what I was going to do,
Hmm.
and became a seventh grade science teacher for a few years before becoming a school counselor, which I did for I think 25 or 26 years, something like that, and knew that in retirement that I needed to keep working. Like I can't stop working. I just want to. And I love being a school counselor.
Hmm.
Love being a part of these high schoolers' lives and also like helping parents be able to help their kids achieve their dreams. Like that was
Hmm.
a big part of my mission. It's like I want to help parents be able to help their kids reach their goals. Like that's
Hmm.
just, who I am. But I wanted to, when I retired, I wanted to be able to keep working and work with people in new ways.
Hmm.
Whether it's couples, like that was a huge motivation for me. Um, Families, continue to work with kids too. Um, it- and to be able to become a therapist, like, and having to really dig in and go, okay, well, I can't afford to quit my job and just go to school. Like,
Right.
I could not do that. And so, I decided, okay, Mount Mercy's marriage and family therapy is face to face. It's not an online program. They had a marriage and family therapy clinic right on campus. That's super cool. I'm just gonna buckle in and do this and go for the 2 years and just throttle all the way down and
Hmm.
just push for 2 years. Now, luckily, my wife was extremely supportive of this because it was going to have a cost.
Hmm.
We were not going to see each other as much. Financially is going to be expensive, not only, tuition, but, driving to Cedar Rapids, driving 2 hours each way for a couple years, it's going to be
Hmm.
expensive. Um, and then, I still was working 50 hours a week or so as a school counselor. So, it's going to be a lot. And thankfully, I had good support and just went for it and ended up quitting my job and becoming a therapist even before I officially retired, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing journey. I really appreciate you sharing that, Paul. It's like, yeah, I mean, our experience, and that's what connected us. Our experience is so similar. I don't have 25 years in, but being a behavior specialist for 16, um, yeah, it was more of a burnout scenario for me, I think, of what I now realizing it.
Mhm.
But yeah, same kind of thing where I was like in a headspace to keep doing what I was doing. And I was working for the school district at the time as an instructional coach with a behavior focus. And while I was doing that, it's not counseling by it's not therapy, but there's an aspect to it that's kind of, I, I want to use the word therapeutic in a really light sense.
Yeah, but it is.
It's called cognitive coaching is what it's called. It's
Mhm.
by our awesome Grantwood AEA here in town. And it's more of a way of communicating differently. And it touched on spots that we do as therapists for sure, which I had to kind of switch out of as I was becoming a therapist. I was like, oh, this is like cognitive coaching. I was like, oop, not at all. I got to let that stuff go and taking all the new information. But I think it was doing during that time period where I was doing some instructional coaching with people, and I found myself working a lot with helping teachers understand how kids' brains work at whatever age they were working with,
Right. Right.
because I had a lot of knowledge in that, and then how to talk, how to, no, sorry, not how to talk, but how to speak in a way where they can hear you more. and using certain language that's not, less triggering, hey, get your book out and get your shit, you would never swear. Get out and get your book, get out and get your math book, get your math book out and get started.
Yeah.
And be like, you know, hey, Tom, hey, it's really important. We're all in the middle of page 5. Can you open your math book and get started? Like just finding a different way of doing it. And then also counseling teachers in a way of how to deal with that kind of stuff too, how to deal with behaviors when they
They have to
show
be in the
up.
right space to be able to
Yeah,
talk like that.
yeah, exactly. So that was my introduction to kind of it, and then and then I met Dr. Milky, and he said you would be a great therapist. You should try it. That took about 3 years for me to wrap my head around that idea because I was so set on being a teacher and thinking this is what I was going to do. And a shift, like you said, the money was scary, still scary. And the hours, I'm with you, 50 hours a week at least, probably, because I almost had to spend more time in my classroom because I was also devoting more time to the program.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was a probably the toughest 2 years of my life, I'm gonna say, outside of, maybe Trump's childhood experiences, because that was just a high stress thing. But to your point, you said earlier, a wonderful support system in place to kind of help me through that. And
Mhm.
so that was wonderful to have. Because you just feel guilty. You're just not there. You feel
Yeah,
bad. You're not there for your family anymore. You're doing it to help that whole situation in a sense, but
the long term.
yeah, so like so it was hard. Can so I was it was scary on a I was scared because I have ADHD, would I be able to focus? It was really important to me, so like I really wanted to take in the information. Um and finding out I'm dyslexic, like, oh, okay, that might have been a problem too. That might have made it a little bit harder not knowing that. But once I got in it, I felt okay, I think. But can you speak to any fears that came up for you at all with that whole situation?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And just, um, can I do it? You know,
Mm.
I've been in school for a long time. Right? Um, and then, walking into, well, there's so many things, walking into the classroom for the first time and like, oh, there's an older guy. There's Simon. It's like you saw it. There's like 22-year-olds in there, 24
Right.
year
Yeah.
olds. Like they just got done with undergrad and
Hmm.
they're used to school. It's like, man, I have not done this in a bit. And then, thankfully, I don't know. There's at least a quarter of our cohort that were probably in their 40s or 50s. So
Hmm.
it's nice to have some older people that were really making that tough decision too. They
Yeah.
had oftentimes had young kids and working full time. And well, yep, I'm signed up to get 60 graduate credits in 2 years. This is
Right.
going to be a lot,
Mm.
right? Um, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there
Okay.
was a lot of fear there. Uh,
Yeah.
I did feel the guilt of being
Mm.
away from my wife and my daughter. Now my daughter's an adult, but um, yeah,
Even what little time you had with her is still cut in half, maybe, it's
yeah,
like
right,
you're just not
yeah,
available to do it.
right, yeah, and
Yeah.
seeing my parents too, and um,
Mm.
just not being able to see as many friends and do things, uh, working out really became non-existent. A lot of hobbies, the fun. Uh,
Mm.
our weekends were tied up with schoolwork oftentimes. Yeah, it was taxing, but also very worth it. Um,
Yeah, so worthwhile. And I can totally that walking into the classroom for the first time. God, that's so yeah, I can really feel that almost in the moment of like, oh shit, here we go. This is gonna be interesting. You know what I mean? Like just walking in and being like, oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I haven't been in this situation for a long time. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So like trying to absorb new information. And did you have any fears about that whole idea of like being middle-aged and starting a new career? I mean, I didn't feel as scared about it because I always knew I could be a teacher. So that's a nice fallback, so to speak. And so there wasn't so much fear about my job or what I was doing. It was more, I think, to the point where you talked about like, can I actually do this thing? You know, and they set it up pretty scary sometimes too, of like, these are the amount of hours you have to have in the clinic, this is the amount of time you have to spend there before you can graduate, very specific timelines, very specific numbers, certain projects that are kind of laid out for us ahead of time. But I think for me, it was more about, yeah, can I really pull this off? Do I have the capacity to pull this off? And that was probably my biggest one for me too. It was like, yeah, just the uncertainty and I think the newness of it in a sense.
Right.
But I mean, that's all, that also, with all of that came a lot of excitement, I think, of trying something new. And
Right.
I've been reading a lot recently too, especially for, individuals our age, is trying new things. Being bad at something and then getting better. And then, so taking the chance to try something new and not be good at it. And being okay. Um,
Right.
so, I think that's a part too of like people who are listening to this that are, interested in therapy. We're not going to tell you to, take up the guitar or something, but when we talk about challenging somebody to be like, okay, so what are you into? What do you like? And what were your hobbies before, life got a hold of you, that kind of thing, and can we dip back into those things and you can relive the excitement of trying something new for the first time again. But I think it's also kind of cool, the idea of like trying stuff new. And I think middle age, at least for me, has allowed me more freedom to try new things because I'm not so worried about judgment from others anymore. I'm more of like, it's about me and what I would like to do. And if I want to go
Yeah.
take a painting class, say, and everybody else is painting Picassos and I have this stick drawing over here on my pad, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but that's all right. This is the first time. Like, this is new. And I think trying to, and again, I think therapy can offer those opportunities too, because we're talking about the confusion of middle age and all the different things that are happening for us, all of our internal things that are happening to us too. Being able to talk to somebody to get some clarity frees up those moments too of like, oh, I don't have anything to do right now. Oh, there's that dusty guitar in the corner. Maybe I'll pick it up and pull up a YouTube video or something, even in the moment. Like, I think that understanding that you can get from therapy that clarifies things in lots of other areas too. I offer that to my clients too. Like, okay, you've been thinking about this area of your life differently. Can you use the same tools, the same way of thinking in this area of your life?
Right.
Like, can you utilize it somewhere else? Again, another opportunity for somebody else to give us feedback about what we're thinking and what our opportunities are. And we only offer ideas if people are asking for them. And
Hmm.
so I might say, well, hey, you talked about you used to love playing the guitar in high school and you had a band.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Have you ever thought about picking the guitar up again? You don't have to have a band. You can just play the guitar in your garage or your basement or something if you are embarrassed about it. Like, would that be something that you'd be interested in doing again? And maybe they're gonna be like, nah, I think the guitar is over with for me. I don't really have any interest in it. Okay. Then what's the next idea? So I think that's the nice part about people coming to therapy is, again, we can just talk about all kinds of shit and hopefully deepening our understanding of ourselves frees up space to try new things. And I think middle age can be a little scary of trying new things sometimes.
Yeah. Right. I love how you had that curiosity about the guitar because that's what we as therapists do, and we help teach our clients to do in having communication with other people is just having wonder and curiosity. Oh, I wonder about that guitar. What would you think of picking that up again or whatever it might be? I
Hmm.
think that's great. But
Well, and I even think about too, this isn't necessarily trying new things, but I was listening to Scott Galloway, who wrote a book on Notes on Being a Man, which I really liked. And I forget which part of the book it was in, but he talked about his main focus now is friendships and relationships. He just wants to cultivate those things. I hear Amy Poehler talk about it on the Good Hang podcast too. Like, she just looks so forward to spending time with friends.
yeah,
I forget her name. Rashada Jones, I think, who was with Amy Poehler on Parks and Rec. They're really good friends. They have dance parties. They invite friends over, other girlfriends over, and they do a huge dance party. And
that's
that's what they
exciting.
do. They dance the whole time. Like, they just really enjoy that.
Cool.
And I think that, back to Scott Galloway, is the idea of as we get older, we want to continue to nurture our friendships for sure, but then it's also a great opportunity to meet new people. And I think
Right.
even he talked about, direct messaging somebody on, Instagram or something because he thought they were kind of cool and wanted to see if they wanted to get coffee because he's like, I'm open for a new friend. And I think that could be an area too, even if it's rekindling friendships.
Yeah.
Life is taking you down this path, and maybe you're in this position where it's like, I don't know what to do. And I think as therapists, we talk a lot about relationships, even if we're doing individual stuff, like what is your relationship with your partner, with your kids, with your friends? How is that, what's happening for you in those areas? And I think that's a great opportunity too. Like maybe you find yourself like, shit, I don't know what to do. I'm middle-aged, I'm not sure which direction to go. Maybe rekindling some of those friendships that you've kind of let along the side, not because you didn't want to be friends, because life got busy, and see if you can rekindle those things. I think that might be a nice opportunity to not necessarily try a new thing, but to reconnect with people if we've lost some of those connections.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And friendships, such an important topic,
Mm,
Simon, because you know how it is for most men and women too. We just get so busy. Like we have so much on our plate, and um, may have kids, may have jobs, we might have community clubs or something that we're involved in, or church or whatever it might be, and we can really uh, not spend much time with our friends, uh,
hmm.
or even just not have many friends. Uh, and that's can be a lot. That can be a big challenge, right? It's like we just don't have time to be able to have our friendships really flourish.
Yeah.
It's I
Well,
might
I think,
text.
yeah, and I think, it's funny. My best friend Shane, throughout the whole 2 years of being in the MFT program, he was cool with like, hey, listen, we're not going to not be friends anymore. I know you're crazy busy. So
Mm,
if you find time and you want to connect, reach out and let me know and we'll do it. But I mean, it's cool. You do your shit and take care of it and
yeah,
it'll be fine. And so it was kind of nice because even with that freedom, I think I still saw him once a week at least because he's a really important friend of mine. And so him being open to that allowed space for me to not be so worried about it. And then I was like, oh shit, I don't have any clients on Saturday at the clinic. I'll stop over and say hi. It just allowed for that freedom to have, but that was a really still a very important friendship for me. And then, but the cool part is my friendship with you, Paul. I mean,
mhm,
that has, when I tell you that I love you, like it's right here. Like
abs-
I think, it's the our experiences as educators, we're connected over that. We're connected
right.
going through the program together. We're
Mhm.
connected with the craziness of after the program and trying to get things set up to do the thing we've been
Oh,
trained for.
yeah,
And that your friendship has been so important to me because we've had so many similar experiences. And I
right.
really trust you and feel like I can talk to you and open up about those things. And
Yeah,
so I just want to take a moment to say I really appreciate our friendship. It
yeah.
really means the world to me. And I'm so excited to keep doing this together,
Mhm.
partially because we want to get this out there to help people for sure. But it also gives me time to
Yeah.
hang out with my buddy. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I
get
mean?
side
So,
time too. I love it. I love
yeah,
it. And
it's so nice.
I really appreciate you, Simon, and feel like I can be always just so open and honest, and I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
special.
love our common goal. We
Hmm.
want to get more men into therapy. You and I have both been the benefit of seeing excellent therapists that have inspired us to become therapists.
Yeah.
And we just can see the benefit of the relationships that are formed
Hmm.
in the therapy office, and just want to really try to get men to see that, okay, yes, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna
Hmm.
try it. Um, and you and I both met with men who might be a little bit leery on coming into the therapy office and not quite sure what this is going to entail. And then you can just see like the guard come down,
Hmm.
see the weight come off, and
Yeah.
you can see them opening up, and it's like, okay, this is this is okay. Yeah, this
Hmm.
is awesome.
Yeah, and to see them open up and be able to, look inside, talk about their feelings and their experiences and what's impacted them in their life. And yeah, I think it's the way I equate it is like you can almost see this wave wash over them in a sense. And it's like, okay, like this stuff
Yeah,
is just
right. That's it.
this stuff
What you
is
just
out.
did. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. 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 A nice big sigh is so awesome.
Right.
Um, and I think, yeah, seeing that shift, and again, I think it's a good thing to point out for somebody who's thinking about coming to therapy. I have yet to not have anyone not experience some form of that in therapy, some moment of, oh, understanding or self-realization about something of like, oh God, so that really wasn't my fault. I've been beating myself up about this for years.
Mm.
Like that that wave of like, okay, this makes sense to me. Or even just, oh, this guy gets me. Okay, he knows where I'm coming from. He understands it. And I have seen that a lot more with men than I have women. Again, I do feel that's part of because women are a little bit more in touch with their feelings, and it's a little bit easier to access those. But seeing the shift in men is such an awesome thing to see because those moments of that thing washing over you, you can experience outside the therapeutic space. I find myself in an altercation at Hy-Vee or something because somebody's bumping into my cart and being a jerk, and I can feel myself, things rising. And then I'm just like, oh, wait a second. I've talked about this stuff with my temper. What do I want to do? Okay. I'm just going to take a big deep breath and see what happens. Like they can just stop for a second and just make small awarenesses that then allow for, again, this sense of freedom. Like, okay, I have a choice here to be upset or not. Okay, I'm going to choose not to be for whatever reason. But that is those waves that we see hit people on to talk about this stuff and get it out will show up outside of here, will show up. And, I talk to men who, are married or in relationships. And I often, when you have the space and you feel safe enough to be vulnerable with your partner, like especially if it's happening a lot of change internally, a great opportunity to share with them whatever you want to share with them to whatever level, but like you informing them of what's happening for you internally, say, they may not see it. They may have seen some things shift on the outside, whether it's how you talk or how you handle situations or whatever, but being able to talk about what's happening for your own internal experience with your partner is such a bonding thing because none of us know what each other are thinking. We all think we do, but we don't. And so we don't have to make assumptions. My wife doesn't have to make assumptions about me because I talk about the shit that happens in therapy. I talk about like, God,
Good.
she said this thing to me, and I was like, oh shit. Okay, that hit me pretty good. I understand where she's coming from. Okay, or and so she knows what I'm working on. And again, it's not my responsibility to necessarily inform her, but I want her involved, and so I want her to know what's shifting and changing for me, so that it's one more thing to talk about. So she'd be like, oh God, I saw that happen in the parking lot. You really handled that differently. What was happening for you in that moment? Like she
Yeah.
helps me reflect on those things too. So that's a nice part about it is like just becoming more aware and then be able to share it. I mean, how nice would it be to share with somebody like, oh my God, we were talking about this thing and I had this memory that I couldn't even really articulate and it kind of showed up and I talked about it. And when I did, holy shit, I just felt so much better. It was crazy. Like being able to talk about those, like it gives me goosebumps a little bit. And it's like being able to talk about that is such an incredible thing to share with somebody else. It's an opportunity to be vulnerable with somebody else. But it's also, again, a lot of this from my point of view is self-understanding. But then if you can bring somebody else into your understanding, such a cool thing to experience with somebody else if you have the opportunity to.
Yes. So, and I want to bounce something off of what you said there about talking to your spouse about what you talk about in therapy.
Mhm.
And I want to just discuss a little bit about um, that very thing because, some of our clients do have that open line of communication with loved ones about what they're talking about in therapy. And other times it can be very, very private.
Hmm.
And I I want my clients to know that if I mean what we talk about can be just like one of the biggest secrets of their life. I mean, people
Mm.
maybe nobody knows about it but them,
Right.
right? And to talk about it might be one of the scariest things they've ever done ever.
Yeah.
So going home and having a spouse say, "Oh, what did you talk about in therapy?" I want to teach my clients that if they want to talk about it,
Yeah.
fantastic. That's great. Letting somebody in is good. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay too.
Yeah.
It's a private thing. Um, but I want to also bounce this off of you too, Simon. I had a right when I opened my therapy business here, um, had a really, really close friend reach out to me and wanted to go to therapy. He said, "Okay, oh, you got your degree, you got your license. I want to be your first client. I want to be there." Um, and I had to tell him, I just can't do that. You know,
Hmm.
you're a very close friend. I can't have you as my client, but I know this therapist that I think you should go see.
Yeah.
And I know that it kind of hurt that I
Oh.
wouldn't see him. You know, I told him, we can still hang out. We can go out to eat. We can go to the bar or whatever, and we
Hmm.
can we can still talk. Um, I'm gonna be your friend, but I can't be your therapist, right?
Yeah.
So it was probably 6 months later, maybe 4 to 5, 6 months later. I get a call, Paul, we got to go out for lunch. I got to tell you about what's going on in therapy. So I go out to lunch with this great friend of mine, and he just fills me in. He'd never been to therapy in his life.
Mm.
And he just was nonstop talking and it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, of how impactful it was for him to
Mm.
be able to go talk about things that he had never talked about with really about anybody. And
Mm.
how freeing that was, and how he really things were just clear on why he is the way he is, right? And he couldn't wait to share it. And I'm
That's
just so
cool.
thankful for that. And
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do here, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to push guys into really considering they don't have to do everything on their own.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's good to be tough. It's good to take responsibility, but also you don't have to do it by yourself. It's okay
Yeah.
to like, get somebody you don't even know, might not be in your community at all.
Mm.
Might be someone across the state. It's a
Right.
beautiful thing with our licenses where we can see anybody in the state.
Yeah.
And I do. I have people, 3 hours from here
Hmm.
that I'm so grateful that they they've sought out therapy, right? Um,
Yeah, for sure. And um, yeah, I really appreciate those ideas, Paul. I think too, when it comes to the sharing, I think you're absolutely spot on. Um, I think that that's me and my relationship with my wife. Like I like filling her in on those things so she understands what's shifting for me, so that she doesn't have to have ideas in her head or worries about things she doesn't need to be worried about. I also want her to know about the things that are changing for me, maybe especially internally, so that she can be aware of them. But I think you're spot on. Like, yeah, you need to feel safe doing so, and it could take a while in therapy to want to share things that are happening outside of therapy with people for sure. So I really appreciate that point. Um, and yeah, I am with you. Like when we have people, especially if people are uncertain about therapy and what they think about it, and what it's going to be like. That
Yeah.
was a really good example of, yeah, have had plenty of friends who are like, well, what the hell you get this degree for if you can't help me? Um,
Mm,
which is yeah, super
yeah,
fair. I
I've
get
heard
it.
that too. I've heard that too.
Yeah. And so it's like yeah, it's hard, but the way I frame it too is like I can't be your therapist because I'd rather be your friend. And your
Mhm.
friendship's really important to me.
Yeah,
And so I can't do both, and I'm picking
yeah,
this one, you
yeah,
know? So they know it's not like a choice necessarily of me not wanting to help. It's more of like they're just ethical boundaries around that. And that's just part of the game, and it's not my choice, it's just the
yeah,
way things are. And so
yeah.
but yeah, even then, those moments, most of those comments were from male friends of mine.
Mhm.
And I remember saying like, yeah, you can't see me. But if you were thinking I could be one to see, maybe you can seek out somebody else. Because if you're thinking I can help, I know of a therapist that could probably help.
Yeah,
So
right.
I take those opportunities as like little taps on the shoulder from the universe of like, hey, they would like to see a therapist, it sounds like, even though it's coming across as you. And I'm like, okay, I like that. And then I get to kind of lean into the idea of like, yeah, go see somebody, go talk about this stuff, frustrated about things, not happy with the way things are working out. I want to change I want to change how I think about things. And I think some people, don't want to change how they think about things because it's comfortable, been doing it a long time. This is the way things are, that kind of mindset. And yeah, I was just talking to my sister about the idea of a growth mindset, which you hear in education a lot.
Mhm.
Um, but I think is applicable to therapy for sure
Sure.
because this whole ride is about that. It's kind of about trying to see things differently and approach things differently. And it's not, again, not that the way you were approaching it was bad or good.
Mhm.
It's if you think you want to be different because it's important to you, then you can make it different. And I think therapy avails us to that opportunity to
Yeah,
delve into those
for sure.
ideas or issues. It doesn't have to be a big, huge. People come in with huge issues for sure, but people come in with really simple stuff as well. Shifts in life, being empty nesters, and
Mhm.
how do we get along now that it's just the two of us? This is
Yeah,
interesting. We've had six of us for a long time. What's it going to be like with just two?
yeah, exactly.
So I think it's just a nice opportunity to sift through our thinking, and knowing that everybody experiences this. I mean, I think middle age, I mean, it's a trope in our society because it's a common thing, middle-aged men and how they deal with things. I was even thinking today about technology. Again, I heard Scott Campbell talk about this of like his brain. He's like, I think my brain's just broken when it comes to technology. Like I just
Mm.
and I find that with myself, like I was trying to do something on my phone and I was like, God, I just had my laptop. I could do this so much easier because I'm just
Yeah,
not
right.
savvy with it.
Mm.
I don't want to be savvy with it as well. Um, but I know it's important. I know this is how things are really going to this thing in our pocket, doing everything for us. And
Yeah,
so I even think those moments of like, these damn kids, I can't, get my head wrapped around it. Everything's changing society-wise, especially if we're middle-aged and we've been going down a track for so long. We do miss sometimes some of the stuff that's coming at us
right.
that all of a sudden we open our eyes and we're like, oh my God, what kind of world am I in? I don't, this is unrecognizable out of my little sphere of life. And that
Uh-huh.
can be daunting.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, Simon, I just want to bring up how people can find therapists.
Mm,
'Cause it can be hard sometimes. And then, like, how do you reach out? Like, you might drive down your city street and see a therapy office or something. And it's like, okay, how do I even set up an appointment?
mm,
You know? So, some things that men can do is psychologytoday.com is a great website to be able to, there's a big directory of therapists there.
hmm
And you can narrow it down to, let's say you just want to see a male therapist or just a female therapist, or you want to see somebody in a certain community or something like that. You can do
Hmm.
that. You can narrow it down to what kinds of health insurance you have. You can
Hmm.
narrow it down to what are some things that you're struggling with? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it OCD or maybe an eating disorder or life changes or divorce or
Hmm.
whatever it might be. There's tons of different topics that you can kind of filter out to see, okay, this group of therapists are probably good fits for me, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then also, uh, just doing a simple Google for mental health therapists in, my community. It can be a good way to be able to see some websites too. And some websites can give you more information, sometimes less, than Psychology Today too.
Hmm. Yeah, really good points. And I think Psychology Today and Therapy.com are two great sources.
Hmm.
And if you're still uncertain about that, I think most of us now know somebody who's in therapy or somebody who knows a therapist.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to reach out to somebody, just, cold calls, I used to call it back in the day,
Hmm.
excuse me, of like, maybe you get on Facebook and you message a friend and say, "Hey, didn't you have a cousin or something that was a therapist?" If you felt comfortable doing so.
Yeah.
I think recommendations from people are really good.
Yeah. Good.
Friends of friends kind of thing. That's also kind of nice because that way you can kind of get an idea of who they are as a person. Well, they're friends with that person, and they say they're a good guy or a good woman. Cool. Then I'll go that route. So maybe you need a little bit more reassurance of what you're jumping into with somebody, and maybe them knowing other people makes it a little bit more comfortable at times. So I think finding out, through friends or friends of friends of opportunities to see people too, so that you just have a little bit more comfort maybe going into therapy because you kind of know who they are in a sense. But I think it's a really good point on Psychology Today to really be able to winnow down to the specific area you want to, you know. And I think even if it's like whether it's like EMDR, which is a form of therapy, or it's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or it's experiential like you and I, like you can go in and find all those things. And even though I'm using kind of all these words that are hard to
Hmm.
put into kind of articulate the definition, just different forms of therapy. And you can really sort through all that stuff to discover it. And I think you've said this before too, like, so you're like, hey, this person looks good. I'm going to give it a try, and you meet with them and you talk with them and you're like, oh, not quite, didn't really vibe off of them, which is okay. Like we invite that idea. I don't want anybody coming to therapy who doesn't want to be working with me because they get a bad vibe or whatever. So I think it's a good thing to point out, like you can go to anybody, whatever makes you feel best, to do this hard work. You want to find the right person. So it's okay to find different therapists. I mean, we offer free consultations here at Waxwing where I work because we want to see if that vibe does work.
Right.
And I think I've told you, like I've had times where I've had a couple come in and I end up working with the husband,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So, and sometimes it's my tattoos, that it's like they have tattoos as well. So it looks like two dudes getting together for therapy. That's fine. I'm a dude.
Yep.
Um, but I think it's just you get a chance to kind of feel these individuals out, and it's not set in stone. It's not a set in stone kind of idea. I think just taking the chance to do it's scary. You have the opportunity and the freedom to find somebody you feel might be comfortable with, and it can take a little bit of time, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Jacobson, it's been a wonderful podcast again with you. I'm getting lots of really positive feedback from lots of people outside of our mutual friend. That they just like hearing our voices. I've heard that quite a few times. I like listening to your and Paul's voices. They're calming. I've heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Calming is one. Comforting is another one.
Right.
And I really appreciate that a lot. And when I tell people the goal of this podcast is to demystify therapy and get men into therapy, all I get is positive responses from it.
Right.
Really, so that like our intention, I think, really matters to people when they know why we're doing this. Um, and it also frees us up too. Like we help one person get into therapy. We help one person not take their own life. we're going to feel like we did a great job.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of freedom in that for us to be ourselves and be genuine about our experiences and the different topics we talk about. So it's just been a real joy up to this point. I'm looking forward to more. And if you're listening, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to give it to us to hopefully we gave you some information that might be helpful and lean into those people that you have in your life that are important to you, that love you and care about you. And we love and care about you too, and we really want what's best. And so we hope that the opportunity to come into therapy, if it sounds scary, we're hoping to kind of ease your worry, and at the same time say yes, it could be hard at times, but uh, we can do hard things, and then we can come out the other side. And usually things are a little bit different for us.
Hmm. Right. Thanks, Simon.
You bet, Paul. Hey, have a good rest of your day, everyone. Thank you again for taking some time out with us, and we will see you next week. I'll see you later.
All right. Take care. If you enjoyed this podcast, just a reminder, please share it with your friends. Want to try to build our base so we can reach as many people as possible.
Yeah, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. All right, take it easy, everybody. Adios. All right, and now for our disclaimer. The content shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional mental health treatment, diagnoses, or advice. Although we are licensed therapists, this podcast does not establish a therapist-client relationship between the host and the listeners. The discussions, examples, and opinions shared are based on our professional experience and perspectives, but they are not personalized to your specific situation. If you're experiencing emotional distress, mental health concerns, or a crisis, we strongly encourage you to seek support from a qualified mental health professional in your area. If you are in immediate danger or need urgent assistance, please contact local emergency services or a crisis hotline. In the US, you can call 988 for suicide hotline. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts are not providing therapy, counseling, or clinical services, and any actions you take based on the content are your own responsibility. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of trauma, mental health challenges, or sensitive experiences. Thanks.